Okay, so we're diving into prototyping today.
Sounds good.
You got all these notes and this PDF, and you're thinking, this sounds cool, but should I be doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to figure out.
Love it.
Let's rewind a bit first, though.
Okay.
Imagine pitching Twitter back in the day.
Right.
Like before everyone was on their phones 24/7.
Uh-huh.
You're essentially just texting your friends about what you had for breakfast.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Not exactly revolutionary,
Yeah.
but this is where prototyping comes in.
Okay.
It's not about testing the idea itself.
Right.
It's about how people actually use it.
It's about getting that data.
Yeah.
Like, will people actually use this thing that you're making
Exactly.
before you
go all in.
Yeah, before you pour your heart and soul and your savings into it.
Yeah, because it's fascinating how many great ideas
Oh, sorry, money.
just get shut down before they even see the light of day.
Totally.
We get so caught up in, opinions and projections.
But prototyping cuts through all that
It
noise
does.
and just get to the heart of it.
Real data.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Now, the source material that we're looking at today really emphasizes this idea of the law of failure.
Yeah.
Almost feels like a universal truth.
It kind of is.
Most new ideas, even the really amazing ones,
Doesn't matter how good it is.
they just don't make it.
Yeah, most new ideas fail even with perfect execution.
Right.
It's just the reality.
So how do we not let that paralyze us?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Because it's kind of depressing.
Yeah, well, it's about being realistic,
Right.
not negative.
Okay.
Like, okay, most new ideas are going to fail,
No.
but if we understand that from the beginning,
Yeah.
then we can work smarter, not harder.
So how do we actually use this law of failure to our advantage?
Well, that's where prototyping comes in.
Okay.
It helps us escape what we call thought land.
Thought land. Okay. I like this. Tell me more about this dangerous place.
It can be dangerous. Thought land is basically where ideas go to just live as like pure concepts.
Okay.
It's all opinions and what ifs,
Right.
but no real world testing. It's like designing a car, but you never leave your garage. You end up with something that looks great on paper,
Yeah.
but falls apart the second it hits the road.
So Thoughtland is where good ideas go to die.
A lot of times.
What are the pitfalls specifically that we should be looking out for?
So first, you have false negatives.
Okay.
Like, remember our Twitter example?
Uh-huh.
A good idea can die in thought land
Yeah.
because the early feedback is just too negative.
Right. People just don't get it yet.
They just don't get it yet.
Yeah.
Like, who needs to text their friends about their breakfast?
Exact.
Turns out a lot of people.
Turns out everyone.
Haha.
All right. So that's false negatives.
Huh.
What's the flip side?
The flip side is false positives,
Okay.
which is almost more dangerous, I think.
Really?
Yeah, because you get all this positive feedback. You get super excited. You invest a ton of time and energy and money.
Yeah.
And then
Nobody uses it.
crickets. Ouch.
It happens all the time.
Have you ever fallen into that trap yourself?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Early in my career, I spent months developing this software tool.
Yeah.
And all my colleagues were like, this is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But when I released it,
Yeah.
barely anyone was interested.
Oh, no.
Turns out they were just being nice.
Oh.
And I was too close to the idea to see the flaws.
I see.
That's the danger of Thoughtland.
Yeah. So how does prototyping help us escape this dangerous land?
By forcing us to confront reality.
Okay. Listening.
Instead of opinions, we're getting real user data.
Right.
And we're getting it early and cheaply.
That's the key.
That's the key.
So let's get to the good stuff. How do we actually do it?
Yeah, let's talk tactics.
The source material outlines a bunch of different techniques.
It's like a buffet.
It's like a prototyping buffet.
You pick and choose what works for you.
I love it. So we've got the mechanical Turk, the Pinocchio, the minimum viable product, or MVP, the provincial, the fake door, the pretend to own, and the relabel.
Okay, some interesting names there.
I know, right?
Wait, let's unpack these one by one, starting with, oh, this one's my favorite, just for the name.
Let's hear it.
The Mechanical Turk.
Ah, yes, the mechanical Turk.
What is that?
Well, it's named after that famous chess-playing machine
Oh, yeah?
from the 18th century.
Uh-huh.
It was this whole elaborate hoax
Really?
where people thought they were playing against a machine,
Yeah.
but there was actually a human chess master hidden inside.
Oh, that's so clever.
I know, right?
And that's basically the idea behind this pre-DD typing technique.
Exactly.
So you replace complex or expensive technology with a human being,
Yep,
like a wizard behind the curtain situation.
totally.
A perfect example of this is the IBM speech-to-text experiment from the source material.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Remind me how that story went. It was pretty wild.
So back before personal computers were common,
Right,
like
right.
way back. Uh-huh.
IBM wanted to know,
Yeah.
would a speech-to-text machine be successful?
Right, because back then, computers were huge and incredibly expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And even today, speech-to-text requires a ton of processing power.
So much.
So building a real prototype back then,
Forget about it.
it would take them years and a fortune.
Exactly.
But they were determined to know if people would actually use it.
Right.
So they did something brilliant.
What did they do?
They faked it.
Yeah.
They set up this whole experiment
Okay.
where people thought they were interacting with like a real speech-to-text machine,
Yeah.
but it was actually just a skilled typist in another room, listening and typing everything they said.
So sneaky.
Genius.
They created a mechanical Turk.
They did.
And what did they learn?
Well, they learned that people were impressed at first,
Of course.
but after a few hours, they started noticing downsides,
Like what?
like sore throats from talking so much.
Oh, yeah.
Noisy work environments.
You can't concentrate. Concerns about confidentiality.
Right.
So it wasn't the magical solution everyone thought it would be.
And IBM was smart enough to figure that out
Yeah.
before they invested a ton of money into building the real thing.
That's the power of prototyping.
It is.
What a great reminder to test the actual use of an idea,
Yes.
not just the concept itself.
Absolutely.
Okay, what's next on our prototyping menu?
How about the Pinocchio?
Okay, the Pinocchio. I need a good example for this one.
Okay, so the classic example is Jeff Hawkins
Okay.
and the Palm Pilot.
Uh-huh.
So before building the actual device,
Right.
he carried around a block of wood,
A block of wood.
the exact size of the Palm Pilot he envisioned.
That's it.
That's it.
A block of wood.
He'd take it out of his pocket,
Okay.
pretend to use it just like it was the real deal.
Oh my gosh.
He even glued paper mock-ups of the interface
Wow.
to the wood to test different button layouts.
So he's like pretending it's a real device even though it's just this lifeless piece of wood. It's like how Pinocchio was a puppet before he became a real boy.
You got it.
I love it.
The Pinocchio technique.
Yeah.
It's all about filling in the blanks with your imagination.
Right.
By physically interacting with this mock-up,
Uh-huh.
you get a much better sense of like,
Okay.
will this size and shape and feel actually work
In the real world.
in the real world?
Yeah.
Think of it as a low-tech way to test ergonomics,
Right.
user experience.
Before you actually commit to like a physical design.
Exactly.
Brilliant. I never would have thought of that.
It's so simple,
Yeah.
but it works.
Okay, let's move on. How about the minimum viable product, or MVP?
This one's a classic.
This one sounds a bit more familiar.
Yeah, it's definitely become a buzzword
It has.
in the startup world, but
Right.
it's a powerful concept.
So we're talking about getting something functional out there
Exactly.
as quickly as possible
Get that feedback.
to test those core features and get user feedback.
Exactly. The beauty of the MVP is that it lets you validate those assumptions
Early on,
early on.
without building all the bells and whistles.
You don't need all the fancy stuff.
No,
Just the core.
just get that core functionality out there.
Exactly.
Now, the source mentions Eric Ries and the lean startup movement
Yes.
as being connected to this idea of the MVP.
Absolutely.
So for anyone who's not familiar with that,
Fill this in.
Eric Ries basically pioneered this whole idea of testing assumptions early and iterating based on real user data.
He's the OG.
Yeah, his book, The Lean Startup.
Everyone should read it.
It's a must-read for anyone interested in prototyping,
Absolutely.
or really just building new products in general.
It's a game changer.
I'm sensing a theme here.
What's that?
It's all about being smart and efficient with your time and resources.
It is.
Okay, what's next on our prototyping journey?
All right, let's talk about the provincial.
The provincial, this one sounds a bit geographic.
It is, in a way.
Okay.
The provincial technique is all about testing your idea on a smaller, manageable scale
Okay.
before you go big. So imagine you have this idea for a location-based app
Uh-huh.
that connects people with local businesses.
Okay, like Yelp or Foursquare, but with a unique twist.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, instead of trying to launch nationwide right away,
Yeah,
you focus on just a single city or neighborhood.
like a pilot program.
Exactly.
Okay.
This allows you to iron out the kinks,
Right.
gather valuable user feedback,
Uh-huh.
and refine your product
Before you go big.
before you scale up to that larger audience.
Makes a lot of sense. It's like testing the waters before diving in.
That's a great way to put it.
All right, I'm ready for the next technique,
Hit me.
the fake door.
This one's fun.
This one sounds a bit sneaky.
Well, it can be, but in a good way.
In a good way.
The fake door technique is about gauging interest
Okay.
in a product or feature that doesn't actually exist yet.
So you're basically creating a fake entry point
Yes.
just to see if people will try to use it.
Exactly.
It's like putting up a sign for a store that's not open yet. And if enough people try to come in,
Yeah.
there's demand.
There's something there.
So let's say you're thinking of adding a new feature to your website.
Okay.
You could create a button or a link for that feature,
Even though it's not functional yet.
even though it goes nowhere.
But if people click on it, there's interest.
You've validated the need.
And you can even start gathering data, like what do they expect?
Right. What are they hoping to find?
Exactly.
Brilliant, a low-cost way to validate demand before you invest in actually building something.
That's what it's all about.
I've actually tried this myself with a side project.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
So I had this idea for an online course,
Okay.
and I created a landing page with a sign-up form,
Yeah.
even though the course doesn't exist yet.
You faked it.
Totally faked it. And to my surprise,
What happened?
I got a bunch of sign-ups.
No way.
It was enough to give me the confidence to actually create the course,
That's awesome.
knowing there was an audience for it.
That's the power of the fake door.
Yeah, it really is.
You get that validation.
Yeah, before you invest too much.
All right, ready for the next technique?
Bring it on. We've got 2 more to go.
2 more to go. Let's talk about the pretend to own.
The pretend to own. Okay, this one sounds interesting.
So this is all about being resourceful.
There.
Let's say your idea involves using some expensive equipment or resources
Okay.
instead of buying everything up front.
Right.
The pretend to own technique encourages you to borrow, rent, or even simulate those resources.
Just to test the idea first.
Exactly.
Oh, it's about validating your assumptions before making a big financial commitment.
You don't want to go all in until you know it's going to work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So think about it. You're starting a food delivery service.
Okay.
Do you really need to buy a fleet of delivery vehicles right away?
Probably not.
You could start by using your own car
Right.
or partnering with existing delivery services just to test the concept.
Makes sense.
The pretend to own is all about being creative. Right.
And finding ways to test your idea without breaking the bank.
It's about being scrappy.
It is.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. And last but not least,
Hit me with it.
the relabel.
The relabel. This one sounds like it could get interesting.
It can be very creative.
Okay.
The relabel technique is all about repurposing existing products or services
Okay.
to test a new idea.
So leverage what you already have
Exactly.
without starting from scratch.
You got it.
This one's making me think.
Good.
Let me see if I can come up with an example.
Okay.
Imagine you have a successful e-commerce store
Okay.
selling handmade jewelry.
Beautiful jewelry.
Now you're thinking of expanding into personalized gifts.
Okay, I like it.
With the relabel technique, you could take some of your existing jewelry designs
Yeah.
and offer them as customizable gifts,
Okay.
maybe with engraving or special packaging.
I see where you're going with this.
You're essentially testing the market for personalized gifts
Yes.
by relabeling and repurposing your existing inventory. It's like a sneak preview of a potential new product line.
And you're not starting from scratch.
Exactly.
You're leveraging what you already have.
Okay, so we've covered all these different prototyping techniques.
We have.
But how do we know if our prototype is successful?
Right. We need to measure somehow.
What kind of data should we be looking for?
That's where the metrics come in.
Okay,
The source material talks about 2 key metrics.
right.
Initial level of interest, or ILI,
Okay,
and ongoing level of interest, or OLI.
got it. Break those down for me. Starting with ILI, what exactly is initial level of interest?
It's all about measuring that immediate appeal
Okay,
of your idea.
that first spark.
That first spark, you
Yeah.
calculate it with a simple ratio.
Okay.
The number of people who take a desired action
Uh-huh.
divided by the number of people who had the opportunity to take that action.
So it's about gauging that initial spark of interest.
Exactly.
Okay.
A good example is the nude skydiving story from the source.
Wait, nude skydiving.
Nude skydiving.
That's adventurous.
It is.
All right, tell me more.
So this guy wanted to measure ILI
Okay.
for his nude skydiving business.
Right?
So he posted messages
Hmm.
in both nudist and skydiving forums
Tamara?
offering a chance to sign up for
Okay.
this event.
A nude skydiving event.
Yes.
Okay, so we're targeting 2 very specific audiences here.
Very specific.
And what happened?
Well, the response rate
Yeah.
from the skydiving forum
Uh-huh.
was significantly higher than from the nudist forum.
Really?
So it turns out that
Yeah.
skydivers
Hmm.
are more open to the idea of nude skydiving
The nudists?
than nudists.
Who would have thought?
You never know until you test it.
That's fascinating.
It is.
So ILI helps you understand who your target audience really is.
It does.
But ILI is just an early indicator, right?
It's just the beginning.
What about that ongoing interest?
That's where OLI comes in.
Ongoing level of interest?
Ongoing level of interest. This is crucial for products or services
Yeah.
that rely on repeat customers
Oh.
or sustained engagement.
You want to know if people are going to stick around?
Exactly. Will they come back for more?
And unlike ILI, which is a single number,
Yeah.
OLI is best represented as a trend over time.
You're looking for those patterns?
Right.
Does interest fade away?
Uh-huh.
Does it remain steady?
Does it increase?
All those things.
Okay, so back to our nude skydiving example.
All right.
Let's say you track the number of people signing up
Yeah. Okay.
over a period of time.
Over time.
If the numbers drop off significantly after the initial excitement,
Yeah.
it might be a sign that your idea isn't as sustainable as you thought.
It might be a fad.
Right. So you're not just looking for those initial signups,
Yeah.
you're looking for continued engagement.
Engagement, that's the key.
It's about understanding whether your idea has staying power.
Long term.
Okay, we've covered the techniques, we've talked metrics.
We've laid the groundwork.
I think we're ready to see this all in action.
Let's do.
What do you say we move on to some real-world examples?
I am ready when you are.
Awesome. Let's do it. All right, so let's dive into some real-world examples.
Yeah, from the source material.
And see how these prototyping techniques and metrics work in practice.
Let's do it.
This first one
Okay.
is about Sandy,
Sandy.
who's passionate about,
Hey, go. All right.
wait for it,
I'm waiting.
squirrel watching.
Squirrel watching. Haha. Of course.
Turns out there's a whole world of squirrel enthusiasts out there.
There is.
Sandy wants to write a book
Okay.
called The Complete Squirrel Watcher.
Catchy title.
But before she spends months writing it,
Right.
she wants to know if there's even an audience for it.
Makes sense.
So she decides to use a fake door pretotype.
Oh, the fake door. I love that one.
So smart.
So she's going to make it seem like the book already exists
Right.
and see if people will try to buy it.
Exactly.
Genius.
Okay, so walk me through how she does this.
So she buys the domain name,
Okay.
thecompletesquirrelwatcher.com,
Very descriptive.
sets up a simple landing page,
Okay.
and creates a web ad
Right?
advertising the book for $9.98 on the
Right.
landing page. She's
Yeah.
got that coming soon message
Right.
and encourages people to sign up for pre-orders.
It's like setting a trap for squirrel enthusiasts.
Exactly.
I love it.
So she runs this ad for about a month,
Okay.
targeting websites and search terms related to squirrels.
Makes sense.
After a month, she analyzes the data.
What'd you find?
Out of the 23,402 people who saw her ad,
Okay.
634 clicked on it.
Okay, so not a ton, but still a decent number.
Right. And out of those 634 visitors,
Uh-huh.
230 emailed her,
Wow.
expressing interest in buying the book.
So even though it's a niche topic, there's definitely some interest there.
There is.
So how do we translate those numbers into like the ILI ratios?
Right. So we can actually calculate two interesting ILI ratios here.
Okay.
The first one tells us how many people who are already interested in squirrels are interested enough to click on an ad for a book about squirrel watching.
Right, so that initial spark of interest.
That first spark.
How many squirrel fans were intrigued enough to click?
In this case, the ILI is 2.7%.
Okay.
Not huge,
Yeah.
but not bad either.
Right.
The second ILI ratio is even more interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
This tells us how many people who clicked the ad and landed on her website
Uh-huh.
were interested enough to actually email her about buying the book.
So this is measuring the conversion from interest to actual intent to purchase.
Exactly.
Okay.
And here, the ILI is a whopping 36%.
Wow. Over a third of the people who visited her page wanted to buy the book.
That's pretty impressive
That is impressive.
for a book about squirrel watching.
Exactly. So what does Sandy do with this data?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah. Does she write the book?
That's where prototyping can really help you make those informed decisions.
I see.
So the data suggests the book probably won't be a bestseller,
Okay.
but there's a viable audience out there
There's a market
for a book on squirrel watching.
for squirrel watching.
It all comes down to what success means to Sandy.
Exactly.
If her goal is to become like a recognized expert and sell enough copies to fund her squirrel watching expeditions,
Okay.
then this data suggests the complete squirrel watcher might just be the right it.
This is a great example of how versatile prototyping can be.
It is.
You can use it for something as simple as writing a book.
Totally.
Okay. What's our next real-world prototyping adventure?
All right, let's shift gears and talk about Bob.
Bob?
A nutritionist who wants to create a mobile app
Okay.
that analyzes photos of meals
Okay.
and gives nutritional ratings.
I've seen those.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Take a picture of your food and the app tells you how healthy it is.
Exactly.
But building something like that must be pretty complex.
It is.
You need image recognition,
Uh-huh.
nutritional databases.
Algorithms.
It's a lot.
It's a big undertaking.
And like with any new product, Bob isn't sure if people will actually use it.
Yeah. Will they remember to take photos of their meals?
Will they find the information helpful?
Will they just use it once and forget about it?
All valid questions.
Valid questions.
So how does Bob start?
He starts with a fake door prototype.
Okay. Similar to Sandy's approach.
Exactly.
So he creates a landing page for the app,
Yep.
advertises it online
Collects email addresses.
from people who are interested.
Exactly.
So that gives him an initial sense of the ILI.
That first spark.
But ILI is only one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
What about the OLI?
Ah, the OLI. How do you measure if people will actually use this thing consistently?
Exactly.
That's where it gets interesting.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Bob decides to use a combination
Okay.
of Pinocchio
Uh-huh.
and mechanical Turk prototypes.
Ooh, a combo approach. Like it. How does he pull that off?
So first he uses Pinocchio on himself
Okay.
instead of a physical mock-up.
Right.
He pretends that his smartphone camera IS the app.
Oh, I love that.
He starts taking photos of all his meals.
So he's basically role-playing as his own target user.
Exactly. He's living the experience.
And what happens?
He finds that he really enjoys it.
Really?
Taking photos of his meals makes him more conscious of what he's eating.
Interesting.
He starts noticing patterns.
That's a great example of how prototyping can not only validate your idea, but also help you refine it.
Absolutely.
So Bry's liking this.
He's loving it.
What's next?
Now, inspired by his own experience,
Okay.
Bob wants to see if others would react similarly,
Makes sense.
but he doesn't have the tech skills to build a functional prototype,
Right.
and hiring a developer is way too expensive at this early stage.
So what does he do?
He gets creative
Okay.
and decides to go with the mechanical Turk approach.
He's bringing in the human element
Yes.
to simulate the app's functionality.
Exactly.
How does that work?
So he reaches out to 50 of his existing nutrition clients and asks if they'd be willing to participate in this 1-month experiment.
Interesting.
They agree to take photos of their meals and email them to him.
Okay.
And Bob, being the nutritionist that he is, analyzes the photos
And sends back personalized feedback.
and nutritional ratings.
It's a low-tech solution, but it's brilliant.
It is.
What were the results?
So out of the 50 clients he approached,
Yeah.
30 agreed to participate.
60%.
A 60% ILI.
Not bad at all.
As the experiment goes on,
Yeah.
some people drop off.
Right.
Which is to be expected.
All for it.
But by the end of the month, he still has 20 clients
Wow.
consistently sending him photos.
That's great.
And more importantly,
Yeah.
he starts getting valuable feedback.
What kind of feedback?
Some people asked for new features, like
Yes.
tracking their average nutritional score
Okay.
or getting meal suggestions.
Right.
Others complain about having to go outside
Oh.
for better phone reception to send the photos.
So even though it's a basic prototype,
Right.
he's gathering real user data and insights.
That he can use to actually improve the app.
This is such a great example of how prototyping allows you to fail fast
Yep.
and learn quickly
And cheaply.
and cheaply. It's all about iteration.
So what's the final verdict on Bob's Rate This Plate app?
Rate this plate.
I love it.
Does it become a reality?
Well, there's still the question of revenue.
Right.
Yeah.
Can he turn this into a sustainable business?
Exactly.
So how does he test that?
Well, he offers his remaining clients a paid version of the service.
Okay.
He tests different price points
To see what people are willing to pay.
to see what sticks.
And-
And to his surprise,
Happen.
he gets a good number of signups
Really?
for the $10 a month option.
So there's definitely a market for this app.
There is,
Might.
but he realizes he can't handle the workload manually.
Right. If he wants to scale up.
If he wants to grow the
Right.
technology for fully automated image analysis, isn't quite there yet.
Not there yet.
So he finds a clever workaround.
What's that?
He hires college students to analyze the photos.
Oh, interesting.
So he's created this hybrid
Yeah.
human technology solution.
That lets him grow the business while keeping costs down.
Exactly.
This is amazing. He's building a business on a prototype.
He is.
And eventually, as technology catches up,
Right.
he can transition to a fully automated system.
Exactly.
But for now, he's validating his idea,
Yep.
building a customer base, and generating revenue.
All thanks to prototyping.
I love these examples. They're so inspiring.
They are.
They show how prototyping can be used to test everything,
Yeah.
from simple products like books to complex mobile apps.
Total.
It's not just about saving time and money.
It's about being smart.
It's about being strategic with innovation.
Exactly.
You've convinced me.
Good.
I'm ready to start prototyping all my ideas.
That's the spirit.
But before I go build fake doors and carry around blocks of wood,
Yes.
is there anything else we should keep in mind?
There are a few key things.
Okay, I'm taking notes here. Fast fail cheaply, get out of Thoughtland. What else should I keep in mind as I embark on my prototyping adventures?
Well, don't be afraid to embrace imperfection.
Okay.
Prototypes are meant to be rough around the edges.
So it's more about getting the core idea across than creating a polished final product.
Exactly. The goal is to gather feedback and learn as quickly as possible.
Not to win any design awards.
No design awards for prototypes.
So if my prototype is held together with duct tape and string, I'm on the right track.
You got it.
Perfect.
And be crystal clear about what you're testing.
Oof.
Like, what specific assumptions are you trying to validate?
Right.
What questions do you need answers to?
So before I even start building it, I need to define my goals and my metrics.
Precisely.
Okay.
Are you trying to gauge initial interest?
Uh-huh.
Measure ongoing engagement?
Okay.
Test pricing models?
Right.
A clear objective will help you choose the right techniques and metrics.
It's all about being strategic.
It is.
Anything else?
Remember, prototyping is an iterative process.
Okay.
It's about constantly testing, learning, and refining your idea based on what you discover.
In the real world.
In the real world.
So it's not a one-and-done deal.
Nope.
It's about embracing the journey,
Absolutely.
being open to pivoting or even scrapping your idea if the data tells you it's not the right it.
Exactly. Prototyping is about embracing failure as a learning opportunity.
Oh.
By failing fast and cheaply,
Yeah.
you're actually increasing your chances of success in the long run.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive into the world of prototyping.
I'm glad you think so.
I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for approaching innovation.
That's the goal.
And remember, the best way to learn is by doing.
Absolutely.
So what idea are you working on?
What prototyping technique are you most excited to try?
Ooh, good questions for our listeners to ponder.
What?
Hit us up on social media and let us know what you're prototyping.
What are you testing?
What are you getting out of Thoughtland and into the real world?
Until next time, keep experimenting
Keep learning.
and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.